let's start off by talking about your beginning of dance in Portland. What was your entry point into working with contemporary dance?
4 years old.
Oh, well, okay.
I still have pictures.
We could start there. Why not? Absolutely.
Little babies in ballet. I still have some funny, great pictures, but it was always a part of my life. It was the one place that I felt, and being in the ballet studio was the one place I felt the most secure and the most comfortable. And that's where I wanted to spend my time, and that's what I did.
Nice.
And then I went to University of Oregon and majored in dance, and did that in 3 years, so I could get out and try and be in a company and stuff.
Wow. It's very ambitious to you shaved off a whole year off of...
Yeah, I took like 24 hours every term. And I went to the East Coast. I went to Canada first, and I learned a lot there. I then ended up in Washington, D.C., spent a lot of time in New York. I learned the most in Washington, I think. When I worked at the National Ballet, and then I thought, I better get some graduate education. Mm-hmm. And there was a fabulous school, GW, George Washington University, that had a really fine faculty and fine department.
Nice.
And I found a ballet company that encouraged their dancers to go to school. And they organized rehearsals and classes and tours and stuff around. Mm-hmm. And interestingly...
So they were training smart dancers.
Yeah, and they were training us so we had a life when we couldn't dance anymore. But what I got, this was a very unique company. It was a ballet company. It was, until I joined them, entirely black.
Okay, wow.
Which was, and I guess that they got a special grant from Ford Foundation or something, and they had to integrate. Mm-hmm. So I was their token white.
Okay, well.
They had all those dancers and their directors and their choreographers had so much energy. And they did fabulous classical ballet, but most of their rep was contemporary ballet.
Okay.
And that's where I probably learned about the guts and strength of dance, and about really using the floor and really using your body, and where my passion really grew.
Wow.
They were fabulous dancers. The kids in that company, this started out as the feeder company for Arthur Mitchell Dance Theater Harlem.
Okay, yeah.
But many of their dancers went on to dance with Ailey. So it was that kind of energy.
Right. I talked with an Ailey dancer once, and I said, what's this experience like for you? And she's like, I've never been worked so hard in my life.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of rigor.
Yeah. And then I went back to Portland and needed a job. And there was an opening at Portland State, and I applied for it, and they gave me the job. I was just thrilled. I said, my God, somebody's going to pay me to do what I love to do.
Yeah.
And the woman who was in charge of the search, and she wasn't head of this, it was within the School of Health and Physical Education. And the woman that sort of ran the PE part, and therefore the dance part, was very, very supportive of me. Mm-hmm. And she said, we want to have a dance program here. And we don't know how to do it. We don't know what's involved. We want you to do it. So I said, okay, I'll do it. But then they didn't have any money for me to do it. But with the energy that I brought to it, and the talent and energy that Kathy Evelison had already started creating, mm-hmm. She's an amazing woman. We started attracting students, unbelievable numbers. The classes were packed.
Wow.
And the administration couldn't ignore that, so they started giving us a little bit more resources. Mm-hmm. And then I found some ways to get some community contributions, and started figuring out some ways to write some grants. And the program just grew from there. And
fantastic.
It really took off when we had a whole group of, I call them children, young people that came in about the same period of time. And Min was one of those. I remember his first day in ballet class. I don't think he'd ever taken a ballet class. And he was incredibly talented.
Yeah.
You could tell. I was just blown away when I saw him. I can't even remember what I said to him, but he was getting a degree in business. I thought, well, that's too bad, but you know, it's smart because then he'll have something that will pay his bills. And then there was Terry Mather. You know Terry?
I do very well, yeah.
And her twin sister Sandy, and Kale Scribner, and there was just Carol Weller. All of a sudden, there was this just maybe 5 or 6 year period where all these young people were attracted, and they were so smart and so good and so talented. So you know, it isn't the faculty provides opportunities; it's the students that do it.
Yeah, and it's just that right mix.
And my sort of philosophy was that my job as a department chair was to work for the faculty to provide them the resources that they needed so that they could work for the students. And I also had that point of view about our provost or deans and president. I'm sorry, they work for me. I mean, and I had that approach with them, and Joe Blumel was the president then, and for the best part of my career there. And that was exactly the point of view he had. He said, I'm here to give you what you need to help these kids to make this work.
Wow.
Really nice.
Fascinating hearing this, because now...
I'm not sure it's that way now.
Well, I don't know what it's like. Terry, Terry's in this position now of starting the dance program again at PSU, which is exciting. But it's amazing to hear about what the original inception of the dance major was like and the dance department, and now, kind of later that it's the same kind of thing, that Terry is struggling for the fund. Like, they've asked her to create this program, but they're not giving her funding to do it.
Right.
She's reaching out to really talented people in the community. She's asked me to teach a course there that looks at dance on film from World War II to the present day. Yeah. So I'll be, but it's amazing hearing so many parallels between what's happening now and what happened then.
That's very encouraging. What is she using for a studio?
Lincoln Hall had a seismic upgrade, and it looks pretty much the same, but there's this large glass tower that was built to help give support to the building. And it's this two beautiful dance studios that have floor-to-ceiling glass windows on the front that curve around like halfway into the studio.
Oh, that sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
How big are they?
They are, I've seen them. I don't know the exact dimensions, but I'm guessing about 25 by 25 feet.
Oh, that's too bad. That's too small.
It is. It would be nice if they were a little bit longer so that you could really have that depth.
I was just devastated when they took Shattuck Hall away from us. What a stupid thing to do. It was a gorgeous dance space, a huge big space, beautiful floor that the Otson Foundation bought for us, and all those mirrors, all those windows. And we used the stage part. It was the cafeteria for Shattuck Grade School, and we used the stage part for bleacher seating.
Yeah.
And it was huge. You've seen it. And then I guess they put computer labs in there.
Yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking when space...
It is heartbreaking.
...changes like that.
Because it was so beautiful.
What are some of the... Now, I've heard Shattuck Hall being talked about by so many different people. What are some of the... What does that space hold for you as being important? Like some performances? What's memorable to you about Shattuck Hall?
It was a perfect dance studio. It had really high ceilings, huge space. So you could really move. Those floor-to-ceiling windows that opened up onto the park blocks. It allowed us to have an informal performance space, but a nice one, a really big, good one. Yeah. We could do presenting of small work there. We could present student work. We could present alumni work, faculty work. So we had our own performance space in addition to just having this gorgeous studio. Yeah. And then we still had the ballet studio over in the PE building. So we had 2 really nice spaces to work with for training and for the Shattuck for performance as well.
That makes sense. What kind of performances were done in Shattuck? Like you said, mainly informal, or were there...
Well, Min did his senior performance there. And it was quite sophisticated and quite beautifully done. Really beautifully done. There was a lot of things were done on the diagonal. I remember sitting there with a member of the administration who I'd invited to come to watch rehearsal. And this administration person thought, my God, this is a really neat space, and this looks very professional. I said, it is. Yeah. Those are the standards, both technically from the technical dancing point of view and the production values. It was very professional. And when we first started presenting, we had this one absolutely crazy guy who was just wonderful. His name was Branislav Tomish. I'll never forget him. He did a solo performance in Shattuck that was so irreverent and so funny. And I guess maybe there were 75, 80 people in the audience because they didn't know we were presenting. And
right.
Nobody knew who he was. One of our faculty members found him in a basement in New York.
Oh, wow.
He was fabulous. And then I presented Mark Morris there, which I think is a hoot.
And was that part of the PSU dance season?
Yes, that's when we started presenting.
Sweet. So Mark Morris was he the first person on the season, or was it?
He was probably in the first year.
Okay. Sweet. And that started in the mid 80s or early?
See, I came to Portland State in 72. I stopped dancing in 79 or 80 because I got pregnant. There wasn't a lot of roles for pregnant dancers.
This is hard.
And then it was about a year after that we started presenting, so probably early 80s.
Okay. Sweet.
And now, of course, Mark works at the finest theaters in the world.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a lovely space out in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Well, then all over the world.
And what was your role in helping to present the contemporary dance season at Portland State? Because it was a massive undertaking to bring in all of these people. I worked at Whitebird for 3 years, and
aren't they wonderful?
They are.
Energy, imagination, energy, funding. They have done a fabulous, fabulous job.
Yeah, and it was a real behind-the-scenes look at how much work that is, that it just doesn't materialize.
No, it doesn't. I had wanted our students to see some companies. I've been going to New York and doing a lot of traveling and for the NEA, and I wanted our students to see what was happening, the best that was happening in the country, like a library. Well,
right.
We don't have a library of live dance. So the best thing I could do, I thought, well, I can't take all 500 students to New York. And I wanted our faculty to have that opportunity too.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'll have to bring the dance here. And I spoke, I think, we started with a guest artist, Donald McHale. And I told him I had this idea about bringing companies in. I didn't even know there was such a thing as being a presenter. I had no idea what it was. But I figured he said, well, God, you ought to take a look at Lar Lubovich's company. That's a very nice, beautifully trained, gorgeous dancers, really solid, well-crafted choreography. And I thought, I can't afford this. I mean, it's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. So I can't afford this $50,000 engagement. But I bet if I made it $200,000, I could get people to pay attention and I could get some money and be able to do it. So that's when I built it.
A whole season?
Yeah, I thought, well, we're going to do a whole season then.
Wow.
You can't get the money to just do one.
Yeah.
So let's go for it.
That's gutsy.
And I had faculty that was a representative of aesthetics, but they all had exquisite taste. And together we made decisions about who we would bring in. And then I would write the grants and I would do all the promotion and all the financials and all of that stuff, which is a really big job.
Right.
And I did it as just a little extra. Wow. Because I was still the department chair and still teaching.
Yeah.
But there's built into every faculty job, at least there was, a percentage of your time should be spent on creating or writing or research, and a portion should be spent on community service. So that was sort of how I eked out the time to run and manage the presenting series. But it wouldn't have been as good if I hadn't had the faculty that I had.
Right. Because you're able to bring in other voices and perspectives to really round out, like...
Absolutely.
what this season was.
And I probably would have been a little bit more conservative because of my ballet background. And so I'm glad that I had the others there to keep pushing me.
Yeah. And then, you got pushed a little. Yeah. Things happened that wouldn't have happened if it was just your voice, but then you also kind of had that overall kind of like guidance of being able to make sure things were balanced. And
I remember then we got into commissioning work. I mean, this was insane. What was I doing? I had no money. Wow. But at work, I started commissioning. I commissioned a piece from Stephen Petronio.
Wow.
And that piece went on to tour all over the U.S. And I got put on committees like the National Dance Project that funded choreographers to make new work. Mm-hmm. So I got Stephen a couple grants out of that.
Nice.
So you just kind of piece it together.
Yeah. And it sounds like one thing led into the next with a lot of work in each of those things.
Yeah.
Being committed to making it happen.
But every single person, even the junior faculty that worked part-time, mm-hmm. that's all any of us did. We were all completely tunnel vision, 110%. That's what we did. And that's all I'd done since I was a child. I was a baby ballerina. And I just was in the ballet studio all the time. And then mm-hmm. I found modern dance. I thought, this is pretty cool. And combined them. And the whole faculty was that way. And even the junior faculty. Everybody worked together. And that was all we did.
Wow. That sounds very rewarding, but also very intense to be that committed.
So, I never had broad life. Like, I didn't go to high school parties and stuff. And somebody asked me to do social dancing. But it's cool to be that deep into something.
Yeah, absolutely. And then to see that there's really something that happened because of that. Like a whole season, a whole department.
And a lot of people that we touched in the community that really got to see some fabulous stuff. Mm-hmm. Really fabulous work. It was just so rewarding. And consequently, the faculty and the junior faculty and the students became quite sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And the work that then they started making became more sophisticated. And their skill level got better. And
are there moments looking back that seem to just encapsulate like that this is something that I was able to bring in that then had like you could see the effect? Is it that tangible? Is it more just that you can't pinpoint on one moment and that it's just that there's all these different influences that are happening that then over years raises the level?
No, there's just a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I remember when we presented McGee Moran, what was the name of the piece? It was wild. All the waiting for no exit.
Sartre, no exit. Yeah.
What's the French word for no exit? Anyway.
Oh, jeez. I don't know. It's lost me.
It was amazing. They were in weird costumes that were, made their bodies all misshapen, and they were all just crazy as hell. And they had food all over the floor of the stage and climbing all over things, and it was so beautifully done. Wow. And I remember that there were a lot of elderly community leaders that were there to see this work, and they said, I'm not sure what we just saw, but it was really neat.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
And then there was the company from Belgium, Van de Kiedis. Uh-huh. And what sticks in my mind was, for some reason, he had part of this evening performance had blind people in it.
Wow.
I think a lot of the company were blind. And that just made everybody look at dance and theater and bodies in a really different way. Mm-hmm. And he also had several dozens of cartons of eggs all over the floor. And I can't remember why that was, but it was absolutely interesting to watch people try to dance and work around it, and ultimately all the eggs got broken. Uh-huh. It's just odd little things like that stick in your mind.
Yeah. Wow.
And I remember when Min was offered a position with Stephen Petronio.
Right. And you were a key instigator in this, right? And
I was what?
You were really an advocate for Min in being able to do that. Like you kind of connected the dots there.
But you know what? Min was probably smarter than me.
What makes you say that?
Well, look what he's doing now. He's having this fabulous impact on students at Reed. He's making good work. He's providing opportunities for dancers. I mean, it would have been great if he'd gone and danced with Stephen for 5 years, toured the world.
Yeah.
But look up where he is now. He's really happy. He's in a wonderful relationship, and he seems really happy.
Yeah.
And he's making good work, and he's still dancing well. And so, yeah, he was probably smarter than I was.
It's so wonderful to hear you talking about Min because I interviewed him about a week and a half ago, and he told me this story about how like you saw him and like pushed him to ballet and drug him out of his accounting class and put him in ballet. And,
I was merciless.
Yeah, and it's lovely hearing this the same story but from the two points of view.
And his accounting, his advisor in accounting, her name was Nancy Tang. She teased me about that for years. About how I took him away from her.
Sounds like you pulled a few strings to make that happen. But let's now the company we keep was part of the PSU Contemporary Dance Season.
It was an opportunity for our dancers that were our junior faculty that was getting really skilled, and the faculty that was wanting to make work. So we gave the students and the junior faculty opportunities to perform, and the faculty and some outside choreographers opportunities to make work.
Yeah. And what was the company we keep? Did it consist of who were the dancers in the company we keep? Was it students, professional, community members, all of the above?
No, it was students or our junior faculty.
Okay.
I think that's what it was. And then there were community musicians that were part of it.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And it had a slot in the Contemporary Dance Season.
It did for many years.
Sweet. So that was something that the students could really be held up,
Right.
like at the same kind of like, I'm in a season with Paul Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are some memories that you have of the company we keep?
That not all the performances were good.
Oh.
But you know what? I commissioned and presented work in San Francisco that wasn't good.
Mm-hmm.
Everything can't always be good.
Right.
I bet you even Beethoven made a piece or two that wasn't good, but it didn't stick around for us to see it.
Time has lost those
Yeah.
pieces.
So, not all the performances were good, but they were all interesting.
Uh-huh.
Bonnie Merrill was an incredible choreographer.
Wow.
Have you had the opportunity to visit with her?
She's on my list to get to talk to her. So not yet, but I'm looking forward to that interview.
And she also made work for the ballet company, for Portland Ballet Company.
Aha.
So I got to dance her work through the ballet company as well.
Nice.
So some of it was great. I mean, no one knows her field of ethnic dance better than Kathy.
Mm-hmm.
Judy Patton is always just amazingly inventive.
Right.
But it didn't always work.
Yeah,
But it doesn't always work.
that's true. And to be held to that level of always having to make something that works,
You can't.
You can't take risk.
That's right.
Yeah.
You can't commission work.
Right.
I commissioned a piece for San Francisco performances, and it was so awful.
Yeah.
People walked out in droves. I wanted to kill myself. Actually, I commissioned 2 works there, where by the time the performance was over, there was less than half a theater.
Oh gosh.
You feel really bad. You
Yeah.
feel really, really embarrassed, nervous. Like you just wish you could crawl under a rock. But the funders, and fortunately my boss at San Francisco Performances, realized that that's the risk you had to take.
Right.
And the funders were really supportive
That's excellent. That they
taking those kind of risks.
came together and gave you some affirmation in what was a very vulnerable moment, I'm sure.
I think there were probably board members for San Francisco Performances that thought that I shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Because it was primarily a classical music organization.
Aha. But yeah.
But then I got to know when the Doris Duke Foundation came online, the woman who was hired to run it, to make decisions, and, was a friend of mine. I mean, she and I had been on committees together, national committees and panels and stuff. And she came to me and she said, okay, you have San Francisco Performances here that has no facility of its own. You've got Yerba Buena Center for the Arts, which is a gorgeous facility that doesn't have a presenting program.
Right.
I will give you each $1 million if I would bring them two together and work for both of them.
Wow. How can you say no to that? It's kind of daunting, but...
Yeah, it was daunting. And it was good for both organizations. They both needed the funding. It started the San Francisco Performances Endowment Fund with a nice big $1 million grant that helped.
Yeah. And again, you really could step back and be like, this is a measurable difference.
Yeah.
There's something here that's having impact and effect.
But you know, it wasn't long after that print media started to fall apart. And the guy that was writing in San Francisco was, he was often more negative than he was positive, unlike Barry Johnson. Do you remember Barry Johnson?
I do, yeah.
I remember that my first season, my first full season, I presented Nikolai. And I woke up and saw the Sunday paper, and the front section of the Sunday art section was Nikolai and all the companies that I was presenting. I thought, holy cow.
I need to get this guy on the payroll. That's probably what you were.
He was so supportive, and everybody just seemed so excited that we were doing this.
Yeah.
So that kind of support was there in Portland. When I got to San Francisco, it was a little bit harder. There was more competition, but I had a lot of funding.
Right.
But then you were lucky if you never got a preview article.
Yeah.
And I was lucky if I ever got a decent review.
Wow.
But it was just that one guy.
Going back to the company we keep, did you choreograph in
I
that?
made a couple pieces for them, but they were not very good.
Yeah.
I made a couple pieces for the ballet companies. I made 4 for the ballet company, and 2 were really, really good, and I'm very proud of them, and I remember them still, and they kept them in the rep for years.
Sweet. And
until Portland Ballet Company kind of became now Oregon Ballet Theater.
Right.
So I've maybe made 2 or 3 good dances, but that's not my strong suit. My strong suit is writing grants.
That's a very good strong suit to have.
And the business side of things.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the students that came out of Portland State. One that comes to mind is Jan Dreyer.
Well, she was already had her own company when I came to Portland.
Oh wow! Okay.
Portland Dance Theater.
Yeah. That pre-exist when you came. Okay. Wow.
And Jan was really another one of these she totally immersed herself. That's all she did, and she had good community support. She had good community dancers. She got some really terrific national choreographers. She got the money. I can't imagine how hard she worked to build that from nothing.
Sure.
At least I had a university structure underneath me.
Right.
So I had somebody to turn on the lights, pay for the light bill and the water bill, and
give a little framework.
Yeah.
Were you ever involved with anything that the Portland Dance Theater did, or
no? I was
apart from an audience member.
I was just an absolutely devoted audience member. And I couldn't help it. I looked at some of her dancers, and I was so taken by some of their qualities, Bonnie being one of them, that I offered them jobs.
Aha. So through that, they came to PSU. Nice.
Yeah.
What are some of the people that stood out in that company to you as being?
Well, Kathy was with them. Greg Bielmeyer. I don't know if Greg's still with us or not.
He is. Yeah. He's teaching at Conduit, and he had a battle with cancer and won, and he's active now and is doing his thing as best as he ever has. So.
And Judy was always an incredible dancer. Bonnie was the same way, and she became such a good mentor and teacher.
Nice.
Really good composition teacher, and really cared about her students. And the work that she made was so well structured. And she came from a ballet background as well, even though she did modern dance. And the pieces she set on Portland Ballet Company were modern pieces, but they were done by ballet dancers, so it was pretty technical stuff.
Yeah. Well, what are some of her pieces that you saw that come to mind as being highlights?
What are they? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're talking about Bonnie, right?
Uh-huh.
What are some of the pieces of hers that you saw that you said were good works that you remember, or just overall, what was the kind of quality of her choreography?
It always seemed kind of disorganized until the very end, and then she would make changes opening night, and then it would all come together, and you'd think, that really works. And it was always inventive, it was always beautifully structured, beautifully costumed. Mm-hmm. She did a piece called the Off-White Ballet or something like that, I think, for the Portland Ballet Company that was the nicest piece I ever got to dance.
Wow.
I was very lucky. And she did works for our students. I don't remember their names, but she made those students shine.
Nice.
I mean, not as individual stars, each of them, but they all looked so good because the work was so good.
Yeah. Beautiful. With the Portland Dance Theater, what are some of the works that you remember seeing in that as an audience member?
I don't remember any specific works.
That's all right. How would you describe that company, just in terms of their aesthetic or mentality?
Unconventional. Mm-hmm. Always pushing the envelope to try and figure out new ways that people could see dance or think about dance, or they could do dance and still do it really well.
Yeah.
With integrity. And Jan was a really, really unbelievable force and a special person. Mm. If it hadn't been for people like her and PCVA, I wouldn't have had any place to start from.
Right.
So.
And what's the root of the Portland State Dance Program? Because you came in, it sounds like it was at a time where there was some momentum and it needed structure and form.
It had Kathy.
Right. Okay.
I remember just after I was appointed, I went to their spring, the student concert at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. And I saw a small but enthusiastic and very sincere group of dancers, mm-hmm. and but not terribly sophisticated dances, and not any brilliant technicians, the way I would say both Terry and Min are brilliant technicians. Mm-hmm. And I was a little bit kind of worried, because I'd just come from professional work on the East Coast. And then Kathy had a piece on the program. I can't remember what it's called. It was a spiritual. And it had that same guts and energy that I got from that black ballet company that I danced with. Mm-hmm. And beautifully structured, and the dancers were good, and I thought, hallelujah. So that was, Kathy was just absolutely, totally important.
Nice. Now before Kathy, there was somebody named Vonda Carter.
I didn't know Vonda.
Okay. So that was...
I just knew of her.
Right.
And then there was a woman named Mimi Ray. I think that was her last name. Mimi, yeah, I think so. And her base was more improvisational, I believe. Mm-hmm. And technique was not, that I could tell, was not a strong part of her experience or what she did or knew enough about or asked for of her dancers. But she had, like I said, she and her dancers were sincere and had a lot of enthusiasm. Mm-hmm. And she took a sabbatical, and they hired me to take over for her on her sabbatical. Oh, wow. And asked me if I could start a program. And I did it so fast.
Wow.
I mean, it just exploded.
Wow.
It was very nice.
Yeah.
So I got to keep the job, and she didn't.
Oops. Well, it happens.
It happens.
And were you at Portland State through until the time when you went to San Francisco? Mm-hmm. Sweet. And you kind of, when was that time that you moved from Portland to San Francisco?
I believe it was 92.
92. Okay. Sweet. So you had
So
from
79 to 92.
Okay.
That's 19 years, I do believe.
Right. That's long enough to really
long time.
do something.
And I think the thing that I still have nightmares about is not unbelievable. I still have dancing dreams. I'm sure everybody does that spent their life dancing. But when they abolished the department and turned Shattuck into a computer lab, I was absolutely, totally devastated.
Of course. What led to that happening? Because in the beginning, it sounded like a very well-received and supported program.
Well, we lost Joe Blumell.
Okay.
And then went through a couple presidents that didn't quite work out. One of them, then the dean, they made the School of Fine and Performing Arts. And the dean of that school retired. And they were searching for a new dean. And I don't know why, but they hired somebody that all of us that met him that were involved in dance thought was absolutely, completely unacceptable. I mean, he had not a clue what was going on. And that was the beginning of some budget cuts.
Yeah.
And the then provost went to him, the new dean that they selected, and said, "You have to take a 15% cut in your school.
Wow.
How would you like to do that? You want to just kind of do it across the board, or look at the budget and, well, guess what was 15% of the budget?
Dance.
Really not. Let's just, pluck that out. All gone. Everybody else will love me.
Wow.
This will be just fine."
Wow.
That was not a smart idea.
No.
Because we brought in more community people, more money, more visibility, more press.
Right. Then, oh, wow. That's unfortunate that changing from that mentality of we're the administration, we want to be able to help enable you to do the work that you have been trained to do.
It was a whole new administration that didn't get it.
Yeah.
They didn't get dance. The first thing they cut out was the School of Health and Physical Education.
Oh, wow.
Does that tell you something?
Yeah, it's like, who needs your body?
Yeah. It's just your body to carry your brain around.
Oh, that's so
And I was
sad.
devastated by that because I was a real fan of that School of Health and Physical Education. And when dance was within that department, that school, we were very supported and very, very happy.
Nice.
And you can't separate out the body and the brain. You just can't.
No. They're so the brain is the body. It's in the body.
Yeah.
It's a part of, it's a system.
You're wasting so much of yourself if you don't use the body and train the body.
Yeah. And it's unfortunately, I agree with you 100%, but in so many academic institutions, I still see that body-mind divide, and that the body is the second-tier thing and the mind is what we need to approach.
Unless it's a big sports thing that brings in a lot of fans and money and stuff.
And then it's something that is...
has nothing to do with the academic side of the institution anyway.
Right.
They try to say, it brings in scholarship money. I wonder
Yeah.
how much money that goes to football actually spills into a scholarship
Yeah.
for a regular, a math major.
Right.
Or a science major, or English major.
Feeling that those books probably aren't too open to most people to see where that money goes. Are there other major kind of staples of Portland dance when you were there that you remember apart from
Jan,
yeah,
and the people that she had dancing with her, Kathy and Judy and Bonnie
and Greg,
yeah. Mrs.
Schumacher, cool. Tell me more about Schumacher, because we did a little bit before we started filming.
The oldest ballet company in the United States, professional ballet company, that is San Francisco Ballet. And it actually originated from one of the Christensen brothers who was teaching in Portland, Oregon. And he had a very talented student. And he went to San Francisco to start a ballet company there. And she was his prima ballerina. Her name was, I don't know what her name was before Schumacher, Jacqueline. She ultimately, you can't dance forever.
Yeah, unfortunately.
She ultimately came back to Portland and settled and opened a ballet school. It was first on the east side of Portland. And then she opened the one down just a few blocks from Portland State.
Okay.
And she taught classes for Portland State. There were special fee classes. If somebody wanted to go and take a class with her, they had to pay an extra X number of dollars because they were using her studio. And that was the money that was then used to pay her. She had no benefits from the university or anything, but she had a thriving studio population and business. But it was very nice because then she could complement that or add to that daytime classes with university students.
Right, sure.
So that was extremely important in building the dance community and building the student numbers.
Right, and it sounds like getting some very high-level training through...
Very high level.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So, those were sort of the building blocks. PCVA, Jan Dreyer, Mrs. Schumacher.
Excellent. I'm curious about what a younger Greg Beetlemeyer is like, because I know him now, and I'm curious what he was like as a 20, 30-year-old something dancing with Portland Dance Theater and being
I didn't know him as well as I knew the women.
That makes sense.
So I was not close to him. I loved watching him, and I loved just being around him because he had such a spirit.
Yeah.
And he seemed like he always was about ready to tell a joke, or maybe he was about ready to do something really naughty that would just be really funny. But that I didn't really know him, and I never got a chance to have to set a work on him or dance in a work with him, or so. But he was certainly a valuable part of the community.
Yeah. What how can you summarize how dance in Portland changed from the late 70s to the early 90s? From the time you entered to the time you left, what was different?
Well, we probably had 50 students when I came there, and we had 500 at least every quarter. We had a major article in the newspaper at least twice a month.
Wow.
We had community leaders giving us money, throwing parties for us.
Nice.
We had press people coming to the parties, the social press, to take pictures of our visiting artists. Or,
right.
That was a big difference.
There was it sounds like dance was much more in the public eye in Portland by the time you left than when you came in.
But you know what the best thing is that has happened?
I would love to hear.
The Bird Boys. It really is.
I will tell them that you say hello.
Paul. I've always said that. If I could have had the energy, the imagination, the inventiveness, and the funding, and the time. I mean, I had a full-time job and 2 kids.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of hard for me. They have done wonders. Absolute wonders. They have really put the place on the map.
And it's incredible walking into the Schnitz and seeing it packed for like a dance performance, being like, wow, this is a 3,000-seat auditorium.
Yeah.
That doesn't just happen, that these many people show up.
And they have these, their galas that are so well attended and well funded.
Yeah.
And they are such delightful people themselves, and they've got such wit about them, and so totally dedicated and so compassionate. So, there's been a lot of little things that have happened, but I think they've been the biggest thing that's happened.
Sure.
And provided opportunities for local people to make work.
Yeah.
Presented men's work, presented local work.
Terry and Greg and Mary have all been on the Whitebird season.
And then bringing in the best from all over the world.
Absolutely.
And then when I went to San Francisco, I needed some partners to bring in major companies from Paris or from Switzerland, Sweden, or England, and they would partner with me.
Aha.
So it was really helpful to me because then I could get a gig. I could bring like a company from Paris, and I could get them not only in Portland, I mean in San Francisco, but I had a presenter friend at UCLA.
Right.
And I had Walter and Paul in Portland, and then we had Seattle. So I could at least. Oh, and then we had University of Ohio.
Okay.
Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State.
And Brooklyn Academy of Music. There was like 5 or 6 of us that worked together.
Sweet.
And if one of them said, I really want to do this, we all said, okay, we're all going to do it.
Right. And I hope you're right.
So it made for tours to happen for artists.
That's lovely that there was kind of like a network. And it sounds like it kind of was it at first established informally, where you just saw that like these are other people that are
informally, but then we all started ending up on the same NEA dance panels together and got to be friends and realized that we shared a common aesthetic. And then the funders kind of took to us. They liked the idea that we worked together to make these tours really happen, because it's too expensive just to bring the Colbert. I wanted to bring the Colbert Ballet. I hadn't been in the United States for 25 years. I wanted to bring the Colbert Ballet to San Francisco. I couldn't do that by myself.
No, of course
no
not.
way. I had to put together a whole U.S. tour for them, and made it possible for them.
And then everybody else was getting they didn't have to present the whole company, travel the whole airfare and everything.
Right.
They were doing a
We
portion.
shared costs.
Nice. What thinking back into Portland, were there other dance companies besides the company we keep and Portland Dance Theater that were making work in the 80s, 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Like
there was the mime. She was a student of ours, Carol Olseman, or I can't remember. But she and her husband had a movement mime company that was very successful. It was very small, but it was on the Oregon touring roster. And they did very good work. They did masks and...
Oh, wow.
And
is this became Imago? Jerry
Yes.
and Carol,
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah. And their work was excellent, really high quality. But it was on a small scale. And then Duja came along, and what they did very well. They knew what they could do and what they wanted to do, and they did what they did really well. For in a community neighborhood setting to start with.
Yeah.
And now I go to Portland to visit friends and family, and the neighborhoods are so developed. It was like that little part of Southeast Portland was the first part to get developed, and the whole community kind of came around them and supported them. Then they did great movement dance theater and workshops for kids that were really important, because Portland State couldn't provide that.
Right. Yeah, the focus was on college students.
Yeah. And Mrs. Schumacher had baby ballet kids, but they did, movement can be for everyone at all ages, and they were great. And I don't know if they're still working. I hope so.
Jerry and Carol at Imago, they are.
No.
Sorry.
Do Jump.
Do Jump. Yes, Do Jump is also still working.
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Yeah, and those are all it's interesting talking about those companies now, because they are strong companies. They're still kind of staples in Portland performing arts.
That's
and it's
good.
nice to hear that they have roots, that sweet. Very nice. We've talked about so many accomplishments that you've done at Portland State and choreographically. Is there any one that seems like a key accomplishment that you look back and say, I'm particularly proud of being able to accomplish?
I was not a dance maker. I was lucky and made a couple good dances. And I was lucky that I got to dance some nice things. I think the one thing that I would have to say is recognizing those students that had special talent and providing opportunities for them.
Yeah. And that's an art to be able to do that, to realize who can take that and then how to connect them.
Structure of work, yeah.
What advice would you have for dancers in Portland today, making dance and trying to start dance programs and continue what's been happening?
I don't know what the funding situation is, and that, unfortunately, that's really key. You've got to get the money. I would just say, if the community could just hang in there behind Walter and Paul and really support them, then I think it will trickle down. It will help the university program, it'll help the neighborhood programs, it'll help everything, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happened with Oregon Ballet.
There is, after James Canfield, Christopher Stoll is there.
Yeah, and I saw the company with Chris.
Right.
And they looked really good. I thought,
Yeah.
oh shit, I could never have done that stuff.
Right. He
I
took
thought
it
I was a dancer. I couldn't dance like that.
to a nice level. And then, to be honest, I haven't gotten to see anything that the new artistic director has presented with OPT. The new artistic director after Christopher Stoll.
Yeah.
He's been there for, I think like a year and a half now or so. I need to make it out and to see
what they're doing.
Yeah, what they're doing now. But I
They
can't
sure
give
had
you.
some nice dancers that year that I saw them. That Christopher had them.
Yeah.
I was really impressed, and it made me realize how I thought we were good dancers back then.
Well,
I couldn't do half the things then that their corps was doing now.
Now, yeah. Does Portland, when you go back and visit, does the dance culture there seem different than when you were active and teaching in Portland?
I don't really know because when I left, that absolutely painful destruction of the program and the taking over of Shattuck Hall,
Yeah.
which stopped the dance series, which stopped everything. It was so painful that I just had to cut myself off from it. And like I said, I still have bad dreams about it. It was just because I didn't, so many of us had just put everything we had, 19, 20, Kathy even probably 30 years into it.
Yeah.
And that's all we did. And that was very painful. So I pretty much cut myself off, really got into the presenting program and working at San Francisco performances. Presenting a lot of international companies, working with that international group that are the big guys,
Right.
like BAM and UCLA. And then when it came time for my husband to retire, I was so burned out
Yeah.
that I have a personal relationship with Min and Gary. I have a personal relationship with Terry. I try to stay in contact with Bonnie and Kathy, and that's it. I don't have anything to do with the arts at all. I play tennis.
Yeah, and that sounds like a very healthy.
Well, I had to keep moving,
Yeah.
and I had to have something to be passionate about. Spend all my time and energy on. So I still have some friendships, but I have no idea really what's happening there now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get invested again because it was so hard.
Yeah. I understand how painful that must have been to have.
Everything that you built.
Yeah.
From nothing to something.
Some guy that doesn't know you from squat just decides to.
Yeah.
That's really horrible.
So, I'm a tennis player now.
Yeah.
You do get burned out if you spend that much time and energy in the field, and funding started drying up for the dance companies all over the country.
Sure, the NEA was cutting back.
NEA hardly even exists. The foundations didn't have the money to give away. The government funding was cut. So it's been a real struggle for the companies.
Right.
And it's been a real struggle for presenters to find companies and support them the way they needed to be in. And get audiences and get press. Can't get press for them anymore. So it was really time for me to do something else.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Well, I don't know if it does or not. But it's what I did.
And also I think there comes a point when it's okay to pass the torch. And it's been like, you know what, I have put everything into this for so many years.
Left.
Yeah, and it's a fight still worth fighting. Just somebody else is going to fight it now.
You know what? You were talking about a conversation you'd had. It wasn't Yvonne Rainer. It was somebody else.
Simone Forti, in that same kind of.
And how she just kept fighting. Well, I did that. I kept fighting for 30 years, and I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
So, would you like to know what I did today?
Sure.
After 5 hours of tennis.
Yeah.
We're having there's a big major international tournament here coming up.
Okay.
BNP
golf.
Paribas
Okay.
at it, Indian Wells. So our tennis club, is doing a big kickoff dinner celebration and a pro clinic where we're bringing in pros that are coming in to play in the tournament to come and teach. And I ended up having to do all this myself.
Oh, God.
So I spent today, I needed decorations for the table for the big clubhouse dinner party. And I thought, oh, let's use tennis balls. Put them in big glass bowls.
Sure.
Well, you know what old tennis balls look like? They're really disgusting. You don't want them on your table.
Yeah.
So I spent today washing 150 tennis balls in my washing machine.
Oh, my gosh. You know,
And I thought about you coming this afternoon. I thought, what a difference. I would spend all that time making costumes and writing grants and, struggling over minutiae that would make this dance program work. And what did I do today? After 5 hours dance, I washed tennis balls in my washing machine.
Right.
And they look great. We're going to have big bowls of tennis balls on each table. And
yeah. Well, it sounds like you were smart and you're taking care of yourself. And you said, if I keep doing this, I'm going to run myself into the ground. Let's do something that I can enjoy in life.
well,
and
I also happen to have a pretty great husband.
that never hurts.
Who is a good cook and a great partner and really supportive.
Cool.
And he's, right now he just got a brand new shoulder, so he's in the other room napping and he's his arm in a sling and he has a new titanium shoulder.
Congratulations. I just have a friend, Carolyn Stewart, that went to Portland State. She does more improvisation, but she just got her hip replaced a little while ago. And I saw in her night and day, like her mobility and range of movement and just comfortable sense in her own body has shifted so much.
Yeah. Well, I'm probably a hip replacement candidate one of these days because you just can't force for so many years.
Takes its toll.
That's one of the reasons I live here, because it's hot and dry. I go back to Portland and I'm very uncomfortable. I can hardly move sometimes. And there are days here when I have trouble even getting out of bed, but I force myself to get out of bed. And I go over to the tennis court and I run and I
make it happen. Drive. Is there anything else before we wrap up about Portland dance, Portland State, your time dancing?
I just hope it works.
Yeah. The new program at PSU?
Yeah. And the Walter and Pauls continue with their success and their energy and that they don't burn out. And I'm really thrilled with like you coming back and doing this documentary.
Thank you.
I think that it's all a good thing. I'm really saddened that we have lost Mary as a choreographer and teacher.
Yeah, me too.
Because she was a real benefit to the community. And I'm really sorry about Christopher Stowell leaving. Yeah. And then I don't know any of the circumstances about it. I haven't been in touch with the ballet company. I just was amazed at how good they looked. I'm
sure there were plenty of circumstances that
they were what?
There were plenty of circumstances with Christopher leaving. That I'm sure there was a lot of politics, but I don't know the full story either. What with Mary's work? Now, Mary's somebody that mentioned to me that you were very supportive of her. Mm-hmm. What were your interactions with Mary like?
Well, I give her some part-time teaching work. Mm-hmm. I would have loved to have given her a full-time job. That's what, but I didn't have any space at that time.
Sure.
She set some stuff on the dancers at Portland State, and it was always really good work, and her classes were just absolutely beautifully constructed and thoughtful. Mm-hmm. She was really kind of quiet. The rest of us weren't very quiet.
Right.
She was quiet and serene and supportive and positive and warm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. That's the Mary I know too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful.
So I guess that's about it.